So I believe social media has a very critical role, especially in this era. Yeah, we need to use social media very well. Yeah, so we don't have to use cyberbullying, but we need to have social media incorporated in a manner that is well organized to reach out to a diverse population.
Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban mpenzi mtazamaji, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Natumai mzima buheri wa afya. Jina langu ni Haifa Muhammad na karibu katika kipindi kipendacho Upeo wa Asubuhi ndani ya kitengo gumzo la vijana. Mpenzi mtazamaji, ni furaha siku ya leo kuwa na mgeni mwingine ambaye anataka kutuelimisha zaidi kuhusiana na 16 Days of Activism. Kwanza ataweza kutuelezea nini maana yake, maana huenda labda ukadhani ni kitu gani ama nini kinafaa kuongelewa ndani ya hizo 16 Days of Activism. Kunradhi. Na mpenzi mtazamaji, mgeni wetu anaenda kwa jina Steve na ataweza kujitambulisha zaidi ili tuweze kumfahamu. Tukirudi kwake tutaweza kufahamu mengi na mengi zaidi. Karibu sana Steve. Habari ya asubuhi.
Nzuri sana.
Natumai huna neno.
Niko salama.
Umeamka salama kabisa.
Ndio.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Kabla tuanze mada yetu ya leo, tungependa kufahamu wewe ni nani? Unafanya nini?
Kwa majina yangu ninaitwa Steve Barongo. A public health professional. And I work with Diplomats for Health, a resilient community. We are situated at Kamkunji sub-county. That's where we work. Now we implement various health programs within the sub-county level. Yeah.
Hicho ni kitu kizuri sana. Maisha mnafanya kazi ambayo ni ya kufanyia jamii.
Yeah, tunafanya more of community health programming. Yeah, sana tuko na hii program ya sexual reproductive health and rights. Yeah, which among them kuna mambo na GBV. Yeah, so we advocate for them. Yeah.
Tukielekea katika mada yetu ya leo, nini maana ya 16 Days of Activism? What is 16 Days of Activism?
So the 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence, kwa lugha ya kimombo nitasema it's annual global campaign. Na it usually starts from around 25th of November to around date 10. So on 25th of November, it's the International Day for the elimination of the violence against women. And then ukikuja when it's the 10th of December, that's the end of the campaign. It's always the World International Human Rights Day. So it's the 16 Days of Activism that spans from the 25th of November to around the 10th of December. So it's a global campaign, and the motive behind it was to advocate and rather to make awareness, to create awareness on gender-based violence, mobilize people to take action against gender-based violence. It started in the year 1991 by a group of women who it was a global women leadership summit, and they came up with the idea to advocate for gender-based violence, so that to protect other women, the susceptible individuals who are oppressed, maybe who have undergone gender-based violence. Yeah, so it was one of the strategy to advocate for them.
So does it only speak about women or even men? Because I believe nowadays in this era, I believe all men also are subjected to such things like gender-based violence. How does it go about that?
Yeah, sure. Gender-based violence nowadays encompasses all personnel, men included. So we have seen cases where men are molested, like the boy child goes through a lot in life and goes through the gender-based violence. So the fact that we've been supporting the female agenda, nowadays we're incorporating even the male agenda in gender-based violence activism. Yeah.
That's great. So what is the significance of the 16 Days of Activism? Because it has its importance. It's not just been talking, or it's not just been talked about like just randomly, but it has a meaning and its importance. Yeah.
The 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, it has its relevance. And most importantly, we create awareness. When we create awareness, we reach out to people, we try to tell them, this is what it means. This is the violation of human rights in the first place. Secondly, another aspect that comes in, we have the global goals, the sustainable development goals. Gender equality and gender equity is one of them. So we try to be in line with the global goals so that we have to fight all these sort of injustices, or rather all these sort of disparities that happen to women, and more so even the marginalized communities. So we have those 16 days. And another aspect that comes in is more of advocacy. Advocacy in terms of human rights advocacy, and making it aware to maybe the enforcements. We can say advocacy in terms of reaching out to the enforcement agencies. We have the Human Rights Commission. So all these 16 days has a vital, as an aspect of reaching out to people, trying to bring them together so that the community, the individuals, even the society has that perspective in mind that when you do this to our ladies, when this happens, it means it's a violation of human rights.
Right.
So it's basically a way of creating awareness, reaching out to people, and trying to impress humanity. Because you know very well, recently we've been having the upsurge of femicide cases in
Yes,
Kenya,
exactly.
in the country. We also have so many cases of defilement and rape. So all those manner of things. We have even the how do you call it, domestic violence. So it's a matter of trying to make aware people. We are trying to make it easy
People
for
to
people
know.
to understand. It's a way of communicating, and at the same time, we are promoting a well-being whereby people have a way of expressing things in the right manner without compromising either any other gender. Yeah.
So you've talked about the raping and also some thoughts. So what are the forms of gender-based violence? Because I believe in as much as it's something that concludes all the aspects of gender-based violence. So what are the forms?
There are so many forms of gender-based violence. We have the physical kind of gender-based violence, whereby someone can hit you, can slap you, can do all sort of manner of physical assault. Then when you come to sexual-based violence, whereby you are forcing someone, like it's more of defilement. Now sex comes in there, rape case. Yeah, so we also have emotional, or rather kind of, it's more of psychological trauma. Nowadays, it's actually violence, because when you're subjecting trauma to someone else, you're actually instigating what you call PTSD, that is post-traumatic stress disorder. So on our end, we think it's a way of gender-based violence. And also we have economic, some sort of economic, whereby people try to control resources. You can testify that some of the communities, man has the moral authority over property, resources. So the man is the one to control all the resources. So you find this wife, or rather, she finds it difficult to incorporate herself in that lifestyle. So we have other forms of, maybe nowadays even we have the online cyberbullying.
Yeah.
We have the actually more of technology. So whereby people go to social media, they talk a lot of negativity, they trend some of the trends they want to trend. And then at the end of it all, you are trying to instigate a violence. Actually, some of the things that happen online, we find it, there's someone pushing for a hashtag. Maybe that hashtag is meant to promote violence. So in other words, that's another form of promoting violence, especially when you connect with gender. We think other people may take it as a way of communicating, having a communication, but in an indirect manner, trying to reach the other gender. So we feel it's a part of it's a way of gender-based violence.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why do you think gender-based violence persists globally despite efforts to eradicate it?
Yeah, I was going through statistics, and it's very shocking that for every 3 women you meet, one has gone through gender-based violence. So it's not just a statistic, but this is a worrying trend. Globally, it exists because we have so many factors that are cutting across. We have the patriarchal kind of setup whereby the system dictates that a man is the one to take responsibility of every other issue within the household. So you find this woman does not have voice in that family setting. So what happens? That's already compromised. And we also find that we have the cultural practices and beliefs that I think they're gender-based, because things like early marriages among our female. Then we also have things like, there are some communities actually practice FGM, the female genital mutilation. You know, this trying to force people to incorporate a belief, or rather a cultural practice that actually has more effects and well-being to the lady. And another aspect that I think, in line with global goals, I think we are still lagging behind, because the enforcement agencies, those are the police, the IPOA, the judiciary system. I think there's a gap in between, because perpetrators just go away and they're not followed up. At the end of the day, the one who has been violated, or rather the survivors, don't find justice. So we feel like we are still not yet there. That's why there are existence of these gaps. Yeah, we think that enforcement is also a factor to be considered, and that's why we advocate for policy frameworks that can really touch every other aspect within the organization of our country, so that we find it a smooth way of getting justice. Because these perpetrators, they usually do all those manner of things, but they run away, or rather they go through the corrupt system, and then of it, the survivors don't find justice. We also feel like we still have a gap, because those survivors don't get enough space, because they need safe space. You know, it's more of mental health issues, because now this person has been subjected to, maybe we can say, depression, anxiety, maybe PTSD. So what happens? Because if you can't offer that safe space for her to heal, definitely it is a problem to the society.
Because definitely to build trauma.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you have those traumatic events in your life, they pile up. You know what happened next? Because this person might be subjected even to do what we call there are those idea we call suicide ideation. So you might find someone committing suicide basically because of the trauma that he or she is having. So we feel there are gaps there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we need to act. We need actually to make this broad thing as a way of activism, because we need to reach out to so many people. Yeah, I feel the awareness level in Kenya is quite low, because some of the communities don't speak for themselves. Because you find a woman is always below a man, and that's okay, that's the social order of the day. But now, when it's more of intense, and there is that toxic masculinity within it, it's subjective to gender-based violence. Yeah.
Okay. Na let's talk about ni wale wazazi pale nyumbani.
Yeah.
Ama let's say kuna wazazi ambao labda wamezoea ile mtu mzazi amezoea kupiga ima ni mke wake, ama mwingine amezoea kupiga mume wake. Does it affect the child also? Because as the child grows up, anaona like this thing is normal, so I can do it.
No. Okay. What I'll say, there's what we call intergenerational trauma, especially to the children their parents have been involved in gender-based violence. You find they grow up in a setup whereby they are traumatized. Usually what happens is that whenever they find their family is compromised, growing up with that setup actually has a lot of issues, especially for the mental well-being of the children. So I find it, I can say, it has a more negative impact to the growth of the child. Because you know what happens, this child is developing, and these are the things he or she is seeing happening. you know what happens when he grows up? Maybe it could be violent because this is the setup he has been brought up. And you know what happens to the kids is because when they grow, they usually impress their parents, what their living status, standards, and actually as the child grows, the social circle, that is the environment around him or her, has a direct impact to the growth and development of that child. So I feel a child who has been brought in that setup has more issues, and it requires psychosocial support because of the trauma surrounding that family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, in what ways does gender-based violence impact mental health? Because we've talked about how it also destroys the mental health of a person, and I think that person won't be okay in a way. So, how does it impact the mental health?
I think on a larger measure, uh, gender-based violence has a direct impact on the mental well-being of a person. And I've said before that when someone is subjected to the trauma, he or she will develop psychological problems. We know things like PTSD. You know, this is just a repetitive kind of traumatic events, and it can actually disrupt how this person functions. And we have things like depression. Sometimes it can be clinically manifested, and we also have anxiety disorders. So these are some of the things that these are some of the conditions that might come because of the environment. We also have social isolation. I think some people, when subjected to gender-based violence, they tend to isolate themselves because maybe they find it difficult to associate with people around. And at the end of the day, that social isolation might lead to what we call suicide ideation. The suicide thoughts now will just flow in the mind of that person. Now, what happens next? He or she commits suicide. We also have, it can also lead to what we call low self-esteem. You know, this person has been subjected to gender-based violence, and now he feels very low. You know, he cannot even associate with people. You know what happens when someone has low self-esteem? This person will have troubles in life because I think he or she will be subjected to a lot of trauma, and he will not even associate well with people around him. I think we also have another mental issue that comes alongside gender-based violence. We also have how can I put it? We also have okay, the social isolation part of it has an impact to the person. Now, what happens after social isolation? This person will be tempted to commit suicide, and after suicide, we've lost that person. So it is a loss to the family, to the society, and to the community at large. So it's something that should be addressed because I strongly believe that it is connected. Actually, it's much connected with mental health. That's why the survivors have to seek safe spaces. They have to seek psychosocial support services from maybe counselors, psychiatrists, because sometimes they develop some of the mental health conditions or other issues that will take long to heal. And you know, trying to heal from mental health issues is different from any other medical condition because you have to go through therapies.
No.
The cognitive behavioral therapies, we also have so many therapies around, but it's a long process.
No.
Yeah.
Asante sana Steve. Umeweza kuelezea vizuri, and it's a good thing that we have you in our studios kwa sababu umeweza kuelezea what 16 days of activism means, kwa sababu watu wengi, mtu angejua labda ni ile activism ya kwamba mimi naenda kule nitetee haki yangu, because kumbe ukiangalia it talks about gender based violence. Asante sana.
Asante.
Kurudi kwako mpenzi mtazamaji, natumai katika awamu ya kwanza tukiwa na Steve umeweza kufahamu mengi na mengi zaidi kuhusiana na 16 days of activism. Umeweza kufahamu alichosema, ameweza kuongelea mengi na kugusia swala zima haswa kuhusiana na gender based violence. Sijui nitasema ni unyanyasaji ama ni vipi, lakini inaingilia hapo kuhusiana na masuala na unyanyasaji, ima ni kwa mwanamume ama ni kwa mwanamke. Mpenzi mtazamaji, acha tuchukue mapumziko, tutakaporudi tutaendelea zaidi. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, mpenzi mtazamaji, karibu tena katika awamu ya pili ya kipindi kipendacho Pewa Asubuhi ndani ya kitengo Gumzo la Vijana. Mpenzi mtazamaji, tukiwa naye Steve ndani ya studio zetu za Mahdi TV, anazidi kutuchambulia zaidi kuhusiana na 16 Days of Activism. Kunradhi. Na mpenzi mtazamaji, ni kwamba ni swala zima la kuangalia ama kutetea haki za kijinsia, haswa upande wa wanawake na wanaume, unyanyasaji wa hapa na pale. Kuna violence ama kufanya vitu ambavyo unajua kabisa vinamuaffect mwenzako, haswa kwa njia ambayo sio sahihi katika jamii. Mpenzi mtazamaji, tukiwa na Steve ataweza kutudadavulia zaidi na kutuelezea zaidi na kutupa mwelekeo kuhusiana na 16 Days of Activism. Mpenzi mtazamaji, tukirudi kwake tutaweza kufahamu mengi na mengi zaidi. Naam, karibu tena Steve.
Naam, asante.
Naam. So, what are the root causes of GBV and how are power dynamics involved?
I think we have so many root causes in relation with gender-based violence. First and foremost, one of the major root causes is the patriarchal system whereby a man is dominance in the family setup. So you find a man has to dominate. That's has power to rule over the whole family. It's more of a power, and sometimes it subjects the woman to some sort of violence. So patriarchy has a very major impact, especially in gender-based violence. We find out that the moral authority has to come from a man. So this wife cannot offer sustainable solutions. So there's that perception within our society. We don't have to give chance to our women to talk. So we just have to say, oh, I am a man and my decision
Whatever
is final.
I say is the final decision.
Yes. So that's what has contributed to that fact. We also have another issue is we can say economic dependence. You find this wife or rather this woman depends on a man wholesomely because this man has to provide. Now, if I can give you all my resources, then I'm capable of controlling you. That's a fact. So what happens is that the man will find authority to control the wife. Another fact is that we still rooted in our traditional, in our cultural values and social norms that really don't have value in our lives so far. Because I believe the root cause in some of the communities, as I said before, is that they have early marriages among the girl child. We also have the FGM, which is also a root cause in some of the communities within our country. And another factor is that we still find that the root cause, we at the end of the day, we come back to our government, we ask questions on matters of accountability, accountability on how to handle these cases. We've seen perpetrators being reported and even being taken into bars, and at the end of the day, the survivors don't find justice.
Some are even released. Maybe let's say maybe they've been reported. At the end of the day, they don't take action.
Yeah, so it's a matter of accountability when it comes to all stakeholders in this fight, because I believe the government has a major share when it comes to accountability. We have the judicial system, the enforcement system, whereby the police have to act and have to act swiftly, because when it comes to these matters, some of them take long time to actually respond back. So you find when you take a case that can usually it's supposed to take like 2 months, it is taking years. Justice is delayed, and now the other side will feel like justice will be denied, because when you take long and the whole system has backlog of cases, you have to consume resources. So I think the whole issue about accountability is a major root cause in our country. And also I also feel that we still have gender inequalities. That is gender disparities in terms of acquisition to education, jobs, and even acquiring resources. You can find even leadership positions. So men are more of being into leadership positions. And while in their leadership position, they don't have even the political goodwill of advocating against gender-based violence. So I think we also have a stake in the whole issue about gender-based violence by putting the government into accountable. because they need to be accountable on how to handle these cases. And recently, actually, we've seen cases from where we work around our sub-county, whereby justice is denied because it took too long for the case to be done. I also feel like we also need to have a way of impressing gender-based violence, because I think the problem stems from us as the community, because we feel like we have not still made awareness clear, because there are some gaps in between. People are not aware of gender-based violence as a violation of human rights. So that's one of the root cause. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And what are the long-term effects of gender-based violence on survivors, their families, and also their communities?
Well, I can put it into this. You said long-term effects on their families, communities, and individuals.
Yes.
So I'll start from the individual perspective. This person has been subjected to gender-based violence. He or she will have health issues, mental health issues. Maybe he or she will be subject to financial issues because they need to go to hospital, need to seek a counselor. So I believe at individual levels, it has a myriad of challenges, especially when it comes to seeking healthcare. Maybe someone will lose a job, and eventually, if they use all the resources maybe to follow up on a case, they'll be poor. So in another aspect of a family, I've said something about intergenerational trauma. If it stems within the family, then it relates to more of relationship dynamics. You not relate well with your parent, or rather the perpetrators within your family. So it has issues within family relationships. And lastly, how it affects the community. I think the community also, because now this is a case that is affecting society. There's lack of social cohesion. Like, we will not relate well with the perpetrators within our community. Even if he or she has been taken to jail, when he comes back, we'll not impress that person correctly. So I feel like it's a gap within our society. And also maybe the cost that the community will incur because of trying to go to the hospitals, trying to raise bills, trying to find a way of sustaining this person within the community becomes a problem. So I feel the community has a great impact when it comes to gender-based violence, because the people who are violated, they're our daughters, they're our sisters, they're our mothers, they're our brothers, and even so I feel like the community has also a direct impact. From each case that we find in a community, he or she is a community member. So what happens to the community? Perspective comes there, whereby the community members will have a say on it. It's either it will be negative or positive, but it has to affect the community generally.
Okay. Yeah. So you guys, the way you are advocating or creating awareness, what challenges do you face, either it's in the field or when you include the government, maybe to provide the solutions? Are there challenges that you guys are facing?
Challenges do exist in our line of duty, even as we do activism, or rather when we advocate for the policy frameworks. And I think sometimes funding is an issue, because when you want to come out clear to advocate for policy, you need funds, because now you need to do public participation. You need funds to come, you should have funds actually in plenty, because you are incorporating so many stakeholders in addressing this matter. And also I feel there's a challenge when it comes to enforcement measures, especially from our policemen. You find this is a case that has happened, and nothing is being done about it. We also find there is also a challenge when it comes to, we don't have safe spaces. We don't have psychosocial support system. These ladies, or rather this man who has undergone GBV, doesn't have a safe space. What happens? This person will not even have an identity with the community, because we need safe spaces, because this person has to go through psychosocial therapies. Because now he or she has been affected mentally, so we don't have psychosocial support. And also there's also charges when it comes to how these cases are done. even at the community level. You know, when you start now the legal process, it is quite expensive because you need to hire lawyers,
A lawyer.
and you need you need to do more of medical reports. Yeah, so it's also a process because you have to incur medical costs too. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And how can we engage the next generation to change mindset around gender and violence?
The next generation has to be empowered, has to be aware about the effects of gender-based violence and rather the impacts of it. The next generation has to come out clear because I believe the youths are the leaders of tomorrow. So we need to do more of youth empowerment programs because the youths will come out clearly and advocate for the rights of others, because I believe youths have a voice, but they are unheard in the society. And also believe that we need to incorporate media and media in terms of social media and technology. Yeah, we need to find a way of having social media campaigns, trying to reach out to so many diversity of people, like so many people around. So I believe we still have a stake to do things to do with the media and communication in terms of gender-based violence. And also, I think we need to dispel these social norms and values and traditions that has a negative impact, especially when it comes to gender-based violence. We need to dispel all myths about the things to do with the FGM, early marriages, and promote things that really support the other gender. We also need to empower women to be financially stable. They should acquire quality education. And then at the end of it, they should acquire jobs. Because being dependent has a direct impact when it comes to gender-based violence, especially from perpetrators. And also we need to make the voice of the unheard. Those are the survivors to be heard by the society, by the community, by the government, by everyone in our realm, in our society. That is the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does education or educating a person play a bigger part in advocating for gender-based violence?
Thanks. I think when it comes to education, you know, when you educate someone, you're trying to empower that person to take charge. And usually what happens is that when you empower someone, especially through education, you're trying to tell him or her, these are your rights. You have to fight for your rights. So what happens whenever whenever any sort of gender-based violence happens within the surrounding, within their vicinity, they have to come out because now they have been empowered through education. They know these are our rights. We have to fight for it. They can actually advocate. And what happens when we do community mobilization and awareness, they come out. They come out in large numbers, and when they really advocate for what are their rights, the government can hear them, and someone will find justice. So education has a direct role, especially when trying to reach out. Yeah.
How are men supposed to be educated concerning the gender-based violence? Because we live with women in the society. We both know that we've talked about gender, I don't know, it's inequality, something like that.
Yeah, equality.
Gender equality. So how do we promote this? Because if I believe gender-based violence happens to men and also women, so how do we come hand in hand and conclude? Because you can see maybe some men live in the traditional norms. They don't live in the current generation, and the coming generation is more of educated than the gone generation.
So, however, what I'll say here is that we need to have male involvement when it comes to gender-based violence. And these are human rights that should not be violated.
Yes.
So we need to involve all stakeholders, men included. We need to have men taking part actually in advocacy. Because I believe men, when they are charged with information, rather than they are knowledgeable about this sort of activism, rather they know the rights of everyone,
Yes.
they'll take charge of it fully and wholeheartedly. But the problem is, you find we have a skeptical society. We have a society whereby men are dominant. Sometimes we need to find a very appropriate approach, especially to reach out to men who are deep-rooted in traditions. the men who are deep-rooted in some kind of masculinity that is endangering the women. So we need to find out an approach that will work, because we need to find a way of involving everyone, all stakeholders, including men, to take part in addressing gender-based violence.
Okay. Yeah. As we wind up on the last question, yes, is how do we use these social medias, or how do we use them well, in that tomorrow's generation comes to know about what is gender-based violence and how to advocate about it?
I think media should be used very well in a way of, media nowadays, we are in an era of technology. We are embracing technology. Social media is part of it.
Yes.
So what happens is that when we have social media, especially when it comes to reporting of gender-based cases, so it can be very easily to report a case online. True. And then we can easily connect with even the survivors, so that we can find them, offer them some safe space for healing. So we can also use social media very well when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to awareness. We can usually have online online meetings, online kind of awareness, because we need to dispel bad traits and propel good information. With stake that is very, very impactful to the lives of men and women in the society. So I believe social media has a very critical role, especially in this era. We need to use social media very well. So we don't have to use cyberbullying, but we need to have social media incorporated in a manner that is well organized to reach out to a diverse population.
Thank you so much, Steve. Asante sana.
Nimeshukuru.
Umeweza kuelezea mengi na mengi zaidi, na natumai mpenzi mtazamaji atakuwa ameweza kuelewa kuhusiana na 16 Days of Activism, na pia kuhusiana na more of gender-based violence inahusiana na nini, na jinsi wao wenyewe wanavyoweza kuleta create awareness to the society concerning that. Asante sana.
Nimeshukuru sana.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Kurudi kwako mpenzi mtazamaji, natumai katika awamu ya pili tukiwa naye kaka yetu Steve umeweza kufahamu mengi na mengi zaidi aliyoyawasilisha ama aliyokuwasilishia wewe mpenzi mtazamaji kuhusiana na swala zima la 16 Days of Activism na pia gender-based violence, kwa sababu inahusiana na vitu ambavyo vipo pamoja. 16 Days of Activism in gender-based violence ni kwamba unaangalia kuna wanaume na kuna wanawake, kuna unyanyasaji ima ni majumbani ama ni njiani ama ni mashuleni. Mpenzi mtazamaji, kufikia hapo sina mengi ya kusema isipokuwa ni kukwambia masalamu.